All right. So let's go ahead. So this is Gary's video, the Hot Cross, talking about, is solo queue now overpowered in Dead by Daylight? I'm assuming he's going to be talking about the changes that they're going to be making with the icons coming through, the icons that tell everybody what you're doing besides the killer, of course. I'm assuming that's probably where he's going with this, but let's go ahead and see.
Hello, and Happy New Year's! Dead by Daylight has had a rough later half of 2022. Much of the player base is seemingly burnt out, and the meta feels more stale.
We were just talking about that.
Behaviour have been making lots of impactful alterations to perks and gameplay throughout the game's lifecycle.
Sinno's another great content creator. Sinno, who's playing with? Sinno's a great content creator if you want to check them out as well.
Sneak peek of an assortment of user interface icons that are to be added to the Survivor experience. And this brings me to today's topic, which is looking at the balancing of solo queue gameplay to that of Survive with Friends. To fully discuss this topic, we're going to have to.
I hear that a lot. Applesauce is like add voice comms to DBD, and like, I think logistically that would fix a lot of problems. But personally, I don't want it for a lot of reasons. Like I talk about this way too much. I also play Siege, and Siege has voice comms, and people just use it to say slurs and be mean to each other. Like literally last night I was playing, and this dude was like, this one dude was just like flaming people for like every mistake they made, and I was just like, can you stop? And then he was like, started just absolutely destroying me. Like I just asked him, like I was just like, hey, like I was like, I guess I was kind of flippant. I was just like, he was like, I can't believe you did that. And I'm like, I don't think there was really a lot of counterplay there, bud. And I said something like that, and he was just like, I bet you wear glasses, I bet your stomach sticks out, I bet you're poor. Like he just started like going off. You sound pathetic, bro. Like he started freaking out. And I don't want that in my Dead by Daylight. Dead by Daylight players are weirdos as it is. They're very strange. But I don't know if I want to deal with that in Dead by Daylight. I don't know if I want to deal with that in Dead by Daylight. I really don't. So like, I don't know about that.
Of Dead by Daylight's gameplay, specifically when it was first released. We're going to reflect on the difference between the solo queue experience and that of a Survive with Friends, the evolution of balance within the game, explore what the new user interface could mean for the overall player experience, and ask you a very serious question. What is it you, as a player, actually want? As always,
I wish Gary would do like audiobooks and stuff.
If you enjoy content like this, feel free to hit the subscribe button.
I'm pausing the video. This is for you and Twitch. I'm pausing the video. Matter of fact, here, I'll help you. I help you. Here, come here. Come with me, children. We're going on a field trip. I'm pausing the video right now because he is. Let's put in a pause moment just for this. Here is Gary's YouTube. Please take this time right now to go sub to the homie. Go sub to the homie. Gary's a very, very kind, down to earth, incredible individual. Definitely deserving of that. So let's take a minute break. Okay, probably like 30 seconds. Probably like a 30-second break. Hit that sub button right now. Homie has been nothing but kind to me in my interactions with them. Nothing but kind to me in my interactions with them. Very, very sweet soul. I am lucky to know this person. And outside of purely just, oh, I've seen your videos. You're pretty cool. like personal interactions, all positive. Very, very nice homie. Very wonderful person. So definitely give them that. Even on stream, yes.
Dead by Daylight.
Gary and I are weird because like Gary streams in the morning, and I obviously I'm a night streamer, but like sometimes I don't sleep, and it's just, when I put Gary on when I'm trying to sleep, it's like so nice. It is like a perfect vibe.
Public beta in May 2016 featuring the 3 original killers and the 4 classic survivors. The core loop remains the same as it did then as it does now. Survivors seek to repair generators, evade the killer, and escape the realm. Or, if in the killer role, prevent generators from being repaired, hunt survivors down, and sacrifice them to the entity. Back then, there was a far more limited variety of perks to choose from. Environments were darker and the pace of gameplay was somewhat slower. Survivors had to rely more on stealth than maybe the more aggressive playstyles you see today. Rather than looping,
that's a good way to phrase that. I've never thought of that. It's like aggressive. Everybody's so like aggressive. That's such a good way to phrase that. Everything's so aggressive. Killers are like me tunnel, me camp, me run, punch, slowdown, and survivors are like, I'm just gonna save in your face. I'm just gonna do your gen in your face. I don't care. I'm gonna pop a brand new part. Like everybody is so like, that's like it's like sweat and testosterone. Like it's intensity. Like everybody intense. Everybody's so like, like everybody is so aggressive. That's a good way to put that. Very, very good way to put that.
Of gameplay, it was somewhat regarded as an exploit by some in the community. This was supported by poorly designed segments of the realms.
Yep.
An example of this is the classic Killer Shack.
Oh my god, old Killer Shack was terrible.
2 window vaults. This created limitless looping opportunities for survivors. Every map had at least one infinite. Trapper, Wraith, and Hillbilly were often powerless to catch survivors in these situations. This could suggest the game's initial focus wasn't on balancing looping, and this feature was more of an emergent style of gameplay. This means when a game features some simple game mechanics as building blocks that, properly combined, provide new degrees of freedom that are left for the player to explore.
I don't think so, Vulcan. I don't think having pre-chat would stop a darn thing. You see that. Vulcan, perfect example of why that wouldn't matter. How many of you have been watching a Twitch streamer who plays Survivor, and you see the killer come into chat and say, good luck, have fun, and they play the most nasty, cruel, intense game of Dead by Daylight they have ever played. How many times do you see, good luck, have fun, and then they're like quad slowdown, camping, tunneling, like BMing on hook. How often do you see that? All the time? Yes, literally all the time. It would be the same thing. Good luck, have fun, and then it'd be like, just beat him up. just beat him up. Good luck, have fun, and then just ruin their day. Ruin the day. Okay, but Vulcan, that's what you do. That is your personal experience. Just because that's what you do does not mean that's like what everybody does. That's not what everybody does. Like, so many times, good luck, have fun, and then it's just like the most miserable match from Dead by Daylight from that point on. Like, it's like...
Increasingly, the game also launched with a feature known as Kill Your Friends, allowing players to set up custom lobbies to play against each other. It was perhaps from this that during and after the beta testing phase, one feature became heavily requested: Survive with Friends, better known now as Swift. Shortly after being fully released, the developers got to work. In update 1.0.3, queuing with your friends as Survivor to face off against a random online killer was implemented into the game. This is what makes this topic so interesting. When initially building a game, it is incredibly important to understand what your core foundationary gameplay elements are, and you build upon those. These can sometimes be referred to as pillars, essentially statements which direct your core game design. Early on in Dead by Daylight's lifecycle, the concepts of looping and swifting were not considered as a core part of the game.
Nope.
In fact, I believe the game was designed to be a solo queue survivor experience when playing that role. I believe the Kill Your Friends mode, an initial focus on a solo queue survivor mode, may suggest the game was designed to be treated fairly casually. Yep. Playing with friends would be contained within a closed lobby, whereas the main game would be a chaotic, horror-fueled solo experience with limited forms of communication. Despite this, Behaviour listened to their player base and implemented Swift, and the game would never be the same again.
Legion theme, whoop whoop.
So what's the big deal, and what makes them so different? Solo queue is exactly what it sounds like. It's to play the survivor role on your own, whereas to Swift means to play with between 1 to 3 friends, usually with some degree of open mic communication. This is, by the way, this is why I use different phrasing for that, because comms is what makes that good. Like, you are better off. You're better off in a stack, right? Because, like, even if I'm, like, for example, we played with Uzi tonight. I wasn't in comms with Uzi all night, but I know the way Uzi likes to play. Like, there were times I wasn't going for the save on purpose, even though it was, like, kind of ambiguous whether Uzi or I should go for it, because I know Uzi likes his points. Uzi likes getting his blood points. So I know Uzi's probably going to go for the save because he likes his blood points. So there's like little stuff like that that helps a lot. But I call that a stack. I don't call that a Swift because we're not on comms, right? On comms, like he would call out immediately, I'm going for the save. And I'd be like, okay, well, I'm just going to stick the gen then. Sometimes I get confused and I'm like, is he actually not going for that? And then I have to like get up and go over there, right? But there's still a little bit of like oopsies that happen there because there's a lack of communication. So I think stacks and swifts are vastly different things. And I see so often people refer to them as just like the same.
Like, oh, well, if you're in a 4 stack and you're in a 4-man Swift, they're the same power, and they're really not. Like, not even remotely. Comms introduces so much more power to a group than just stacking does. And I feel like people way, way, way over-exaggerate how much stacks are good versus Swifts are good. Never comms? Yeah. Like, literally. Like, why would perks like Kindred be good if comms weren't that much better? Literally.
Information, such as current generator progress, where the killer is currently located, perks you've discovered the killer has, where a lit totem is situated.
There
you
it is.
can even
All
better
stuff.
coordinate your actions, such as leading a killer towards a locker for a head-on play, or simply better positioning for a flashlight save. Essentially, Swift can allow for a huge disparity of information as opposed to the solo queue experience.
And that's a good thing to also say, Alice, is because that's a perk slot. If you're not running Bond or Kindred, that's potentially hyper-focused. That's potentially Prove. That's potentially, like, Sprint Burst, Lithe, Deadheart. There's, like... That's like a... Like that's a perk slot that can be used for something actually meta and something actually good. So, another case in point. Yeah, Head-On is a meme perk. Head-On's for fun. Head-On's not actually that effective. Head-On's not that good at all. It's just a funny perk.
When playing killer, you can often start to get a sense that you're against a Swift by the coordination they display in a match. Although it's worth noting that not all Survival with Friends lobbies are sweat squads, and some solo queue lobbies.
Yes, this screen right here. Not all Swifts are good. Some people are just messing around. So many Swifts I've run into literally just bait. Like, so many Swifts I run into just go for flashlight saves and fail. like they're not even getting the saves. Like, they're all just like baiting flashlight saves and failing and losing. Literally losing. And it's like, not everybody's out to like SWAT Team 6 the game. But also, same thing. Like I was yelling in that other video. You can't call Swift for everybody who's even remotely good, because you could be facing a duo in 2 solos, and they just all happen to be good players that have good map awareness. Map awareness is mostly a term used to describe like killer gameplay, because they're the one that kind of dictate the flow of the match. But like, map awareness is the thing for Survivor too. So if you have 4 good solos that have good map awareness, and they may do well too, you know. It's not necessarily specifically a comms thing that good survivors just know what good plays to make. Like, for example, like the order of operations for saves. If I'm injured, I probably shouldn't be going for the save. And if the 2 other solo survivors that are the 3 other solo survivors I'm with are healthy, and we're all like moderately good at the game, they know I'm not going for the save if I'm injured. So they know one of the 3 of them has to go do it, if they know the order of operations for saves. And then we look at like the hook states, right? Like, if somebody's on death hook, that person probably shouldn't go for the save even if they're healthy. So that leaves 2 people. So one of the 2 players will look at each other and go, okay, somebody needs to go get that save. You don't need comms to do that. You just need to be good at the game. So not every, like, good plays are not inherently comms, you know, if that's like the point I'm trying to make here. Good plays are not inherently comms. We would just be lying because we're just all competent. Exactly. Competency is not always comms. And I hate that they're kind of inherently tied to each other through a lot of players. Hi, Zan. How's it going? Pretty good.
Is it good at the game? Most people playing with their friends are relaxing and just having fun. But even with that in mind, they still have a lot of informational advantages, making the game much more difficult for the killer role. Even if the survivor team isn't trying that hard to win, they still have the upper hand, an advantage that the game highly struggles to balance around. So this is where a lot of the debate strives from. Ultimately, survivors have the advantage when played optimally in a Swift. Even playing one of the stronger killers with the strongest perks, you're still going to struggle if the survivors want to win badly enough.
Yep.
So this again leads us to the topic of
and this too I say a lot, because I like to bully. I guess bully is the word. Or I like to like put a lot of like crybaby entitled killer mains in their place, but I like to put any entitled player in their place, to be fair. But I'm going to throw you a bone right here, crybaby entitled killer mains. 4-man Swift is still the strongest thing in the game by a landslide. It's not even close. Like, if you run overcharge, like over Bran meta, even against a good Swift, they're still going to beat you. They're still going to beat you if they're sweating. That's the keyword. If they're sweating, if they really, really want to win it, they will, and they probably always will be. Like Matt said, probably always always will be. So there's that. There's that. They will always be the strongest role in the game.
The evolution of it within DBD.
Yeah, and if you don't believe that, just go look at Comp DBD. Literally go look at Comp DBD. Just go watch some scrims. Go watch and just be like, oh my god. See what a 4-man like firing on full cylinders can do? I know the rules are different, so it's a little different than pubs. But like, go watch some scrims and be like, oh my god, what's happening? Go throw on some tournaments and be like, whoa, what is happening? And see the power of a 4-man group actually doing their best.
Now, despite a 4-person Swift using open mics being arguably the strongest form of play, it is widely accepted that solo queue Survivor is actually the weakest way to play, making for quite the disparity.
Yep.
And in between these two widely different forms of play are the blind killers, who are unable to differentiate what kind of lobby they're up against, meaning
Did this in the last video, but we're doing this again. Not every good team you face is a Swift. Not every good team you face is a Swift. Not every good team you face is a Swift. Okay, we good? Understand that? Are we on the same page now? You're like literally you're dumb. Literally, okay, maybe you're not dumb. That's a little rude, but it's a dumb thing to just blame any good play on Swift. Like you are saying and doing something stupid. Even if you yourself are not stupid, what you're doing is stupid. If you're just like, oh, it's a sweep every single time, like anything good happens. It's a sweep. Bro, shut up. Have some awareness. Good lord. Like you're literally performing a dumb action. You are being stupid, even if you yourself are not stupid. Yeah, you can turn anything competitive. People bet on nothing. Like, matter of fact, most betting is done based on RNG and not actually any sense of concreteness. Most betting is done with the thrill that everything is up in the air, and in a sense, asymmetrical. Oh god, I just clicked the button. I just clicked a button on my mouse and I don't know where we were at. Yeah, clueless killer.
Who are unable to differentiate what kind of lobby they're up against, meaning every team of survivors that outplayed the killer are often assumed to be the optimal Swift.
Mm-hmm.
The unfortunate reality of this is that the killers sometimes feel forced to go into each and every match expecting the worst, bringing the most powerful meta perks, and camping and tunneling increasingly often. And why do players choose to do this? Well, partially due to MMR. You are going to face
this all ties together.
Your skill level, and sometimes they're going to win. But whose fault is it when you lose? In these situations, some will utilize critical reflection. To be specific, reflection on action, meaning the retrospective contemplation of practice in order to uncover the knowledge used in a particular situation.
Smart.
By analysing and interpreting the information recalled, the reflective practitioner may speculate how the situation might have been handled differently, and what other knowledge would have been helpful. The trouble is, DBD is often a game where you can blame someone other than yourself. We've all done it, or had a friend do it, or even seen content creators blame everything but themselves. This is because
I have a story, and okay, you can probably guess who it is based on what I'm about to describe, but please don't bring their name up. I was watching a content creator a couple weeks ago. He was playing Wesker on Torment Creek. Do you know the Torment Creek main building, the fallen silo? How does that window with the breakable wall that you should just break to prevent that loop? He was playing Wesker and he was chasing the survivor. But he kept trying to use Wesker's Virulent Bound, his M2, to vault the window quick enough to catch up to them. So, said streamer ended up in a loop, almost an endless loop, of this survivor running to that window, making the window. He vaults with the M2, doesn't catch up in time for her to run all the way around, vault back through that window. He does the same thing. He tries to Virulent Bond, doesn't catch up. She vaults the window again. He tries to mind game around the other side for some reason, and doesn't work. She vaults again, and he doesn't end up like breaking the breakable wall before she's gotten like 3 full vaults of this thing, right? And at that point, it's entity blocked. So he ends up losing this match, right? He ends up actually losing the match, and he's typically a very sweaty streamer. He likes to run 4 slowdown or 3 slowdown and 1 perk, 1 funny perk. And can you guess what he blamed? Can you guess what he blamed? Can you guess what he didn't blame? Well, I think that's the bigger question. Can you guess what he didn't blame? What should he have blamed in that scenario of why he lost that match? Who should he have blamed? He break the freaking wall. Yeah, he literally let somebody get entity block of that window. He should have blamed, correct, himself. He should have blamed himself. Break the door, forehead. But he has thousands and thousands and thousands of hours. He has way more experience in the game than I do. We didn't break the wall and then blamed the game. Long ago, this was like 2 weeks ago. Something like that. It was the most appalling thing I'd ever seen. Incredibly experienced streamer. Incredibly experienced killer player. Just running that window in the most backwards, stupid way I've ever seen. Like literally, like like a dog chasing a ball. He's like, I will win with my M2. I will win with my M2. I will win with my M2. Just like stupid. Just like dog chase ball. Like, and then blamed the game. I was appalled. Yeah. Gary's right. It's like there's so much of a lack of self-reflection in this game. It is. And it's not, and like I'm saying right now, that's a very, very popular streamer I'm mentioning that I won't name the name of. Probably twice the hours I have, if not more. I don't know what to say. Still does not have the self-reflection.
It's easier to blame others. It's more difficult and takes stronger character to reflect on your own mistakes.
Maybe Matt, it should
often blame their teammates, if not the killer directly, for failings in the match. Sometimes rightfully, other times wrongfully. Killers do the same, and that usually means accusing the survivors of being in a swift, which is how a killer player often justifies camping, tunneling, and meta, creating the cycle I discussed in our last video.
Hey,
when in actuality, when we play a match of DBD, we continually
before.
Make mistakes. Many decisions you make are based on assumptions and guesswork. Much of it is a 50-50 coin toss. As for the Swift question, in 2019, statistics were released showing numbers of players in varying parties.
Wow. You know what's funny? People dispute this with me all the time. It's funny. People dispute it with me all the time. A lot of them are on the YouTube. So hi, if you've made fun of me for making this claim, screw you, idiot. Screw you. You suck. You stink, and you're smelly because you're wrong. I always say solo queue is the most common and casual form of gameplay in this game because it doesn't require other people, and it's very like the survivor is the more common role. It's the simpler role. So solo queue is the most common form of gameplay in the game. People have dunked on me on that. Like, not true. You don't know that. That's not true. That's wrong. Read and weep. Oh, point here. Read and weep, forehead. God, it's like almost like I've played this game for 4,000 plus hours at this point. You think I know a thing or two? No, just argue with me and cry and complain. Hey, it's like what we were talking about earlier. No accountability. I'd rather just yell at the guy who, I don't know, plays this game almost every day of his life. Clearly, he doesn't know anything. I know better with my 300 hours, and I play killer only a certain way. So I'm going to talk down to this guy. People in this community are so stupid. Anyways.
The vast majority of players back then was solo queue. I find it unlikely much has changed since then. I know that MMR and time of day will sway this, but no matter how you look at it, you're probably facing more solo queue squads than you'd like to think when playing the killer role. I've said this too many times now, but I'll say it one more time as simply as I can. Dead by Daylight is an asymmetrical game which relies heavily on RNG throughout.
Yep.
Balance is a synonym for the word symmetry.
Yep.
Asymmetry is in direct opposition to balance.
So, like, what DBD fundamentally, in terms of a balance perspective, needs is a deletion of outliers. Or a balance, rather, of outliers. Outliers need to be balanced. You can have, I think, here's a perfect example. Batum does not need 3 main buildings. Let's talk about maps. Batum does not need 3 main buildings. It just doesn't. Why does it have preschool, a 2-story house, house of paint, and shack? Why does it need? That's 4 things. 3 main buildings and a shack? We can take that out. It's about tackling the outliers. You can have a map like what's a good example? What's a really, really good example? Let's take you could have Dead Dog. We're talking about breakable walls. We have Dead Dog be a mostly killer-sided map. That's okay. They can have mostly a killer-sided map. That's fine. Just like how you can have, say, Suffo Pit? Yeah. Suffo Pit, which is, relatively, survivor-sided. You know? You could have, maps that are, relatively survivor-sided, relatively killer-sided. You can have, those differentiating strengths. It's just you got to get rid of the outliers. You got to get rid of the outliers. Ones that are a little too strong. Shelter could probably use a main building or something. Great example. Shelter is an outlier. I think it's a little too killer-sided. Shelter probably needs a main building or something. You gotta bring it more in line. Whereas, like I said, with Batum, you should probably take out Shaq. Why does it, or at least one of the main buildings, why does it have 4 super strong structures to loop killers? Why? It doesn't need that. But you could have other stuff like Temple. Temple's a great example. Temple is mostly survivor-sided, but it's fine. You can have a map that's mostly survivor-sided. That is okay. Just like how you can have Wrecker's Yard, which is kind of mostly killer-sided, but can spawn really strong setups. It's not a huge deal. Yeah, anyways. Yeah. Essentially, TLDR, balance in DBD is important because you should definitely correct the outliers. But in terms of the rest of it, you can have strong stuff for both sides and weak stuff for both sides. It's mostly okay. There's just a lot of outliers that we got to kind of put guardrails on.
That's okay, because the game is heavily dependent on RNG factors such as perks, realm, tiles, palettes, items, abilities, and more. And that's before you take into account the uncertainty that each player brings into the match, with different strengths and weaknesses to their gameplay. That's not to argue that some balance is not a good thing. Here are some strong examples of improvements to the game's overall feel. The 1.1.2 toolbox rework was undoubtedly a great change, preventing generators repairing insanely quick. And the 2.1.0 brand new part adjustment as well.
I think toolboxes are still outliers. I'm gonna be real. I think toolboxes are still outliers. You just get part of an objective done for no reason, just because. We were discussing this earlier in the stream. What if there was a killer add-on that you could just bring and somebody immediately starts the second hook when you hook them? Nobody would be cool with that. No one would be fine with that. What does a BNP do? Except it just it just deletes or not deletes, but just finishes part of a generator out of nowhere. Just for free, just because you spent blood points outside the match. Well, you have to hit great skill checks, but they're pretty easy. It's I don't get them as a concept. I've never understood toolboxes as a concept. I have no idea why those exist. It does not make sense to me. I know they used to be worse, but I don't get them as a concept, period. I don't know why they're in the game. Because it just creates this awkward, that's why killers bring a lot of slowdown. It's because they're anticipating this sort of stuff where it's just yeah, I spent blood points outside the match, so now I just partially complete an objective just because. It's what? What do you mean? Why? It just doesn't make sense to me. It just never has tracked in my brain. So I don't know. I think toolboxes fundamentally just are weird as an item, and I don't know why they're in the game.
And completions. 4.5.0 brought us the new UI update. Hook counters for survivors and killer players helping track match progress, even though the game still only recognizes kills for the killer's victory state. But that's a topic for another time. The 4.7.0 Objective Obsession rework, making it far less reliable for Swifts to dominate a match.
Yeah, Uzi. Yeah, Uzi. Yeah.
Included a much overdue nerf to the Huntress, Iridescent Hatchet build. These, I would argue, all with the betterment of the game, making it feel fairer. But something major came on the 7th of September 2021. MMR. 5.2.0 reworked the old rank system, and it became the current raid system.
That answer was so laggy.
Matchmaking was now in the hands of MMR. Swiftly following this came 5.3.0 with another much needed nerf to the hatch, making keys take 2.5 seconds to open the hatch, and now it would only spawn.
I know keys are kind of useless now, but this was the worst thing ever. If you existed in the realm of gameplay back in the day with old keys, you are entitled to financial compensation. if you played killer during old keys, you are entitled to financial compensation. That was people ask me, it's like, how close have you ever gotten to like actually quitting Dead by Daylight? And I always infamously cite that one Wraith game on Old Ormond where I kept getting DS'd off of hooks, gens, everything, and I almost uninstalled. This, like, there's not a single moment other than that I can think of where I was like, okay, I'm actually going to uninstall here. But there were many times where I was like heavily like, I kind of actually hate this game when I would get 3-man outed by a key. They would 3-gen themselves, go, oh crap, we 3-gen ourselves, which is a bad play, by the way. 3-genning, like, is not always enforced by the killers. Sometimes it's enforced by the survivors, not doing the gens well. And then they just go, okay, well, I'll just search chests and I'll just find a key and I'll just leave. So, yeah, they literally winning for free. It was literally winning for free. It was literally winning for free. It was the worst thing that is... One of the worst things I've ever had to deal with in this game was it didn't matter if I played well. As long as they can find a key and gather it all up near hatch, I lose. It doesn't matter how well I played or what I did. Just key out. That you are entitled to financial compensation if you live through that. Really do. Really do.
Born when one survivor remained in the realm. 5.7.0 was a big balance change as well, introducing a new Haddonfield map, which beforehand was a widely unpopular map among killer players, also adjusting several perks including Boil Over, Circle of Healing, Sloppy Butcher, and a rework to the Hemorrhage status effect. This led to the most recent big balance patch, 6.1.0. With this, we saw a massive meta shakeup, which I would suggest has put Dead by Daylight in the most balanced state it's ever been. But I would also argue in one of the most stale states as well.
Yep.
So this brings us to potentially the next big balance patch being teased.
Oh, Uzi, they were just talking about the initial nerf to object back when it was actually like an OP meta perk. Back when you could use it to like, you know, like a Midwich infamously where you could just run around the hallways and they could never catch you. They just brought up that nerf to object. I was like, oh, hey, I'm my resident object user. Hello.
On the 19th of December 2022, Behaviour showed us a teaser for a new feature they are looking to add, a user interface update allowing survivors to see which of their teammates is currently being chased, along with what actions survivors are currently doing, including cleansing totems, opening chests, and repairing generators. Currently a PTB is underway which shows the full extent of the UI update. The upcoming informational icons will include when survivors are healing, mending, recovering, blessing totems, opening an exit door, and a couple of killer specific options as well for snapping out of it and waking up.
Oh, I didn't know that actually.
The response has been very really positive, as many players are rejoicing at the idea of solo queue, the most difficult way to play, being brought closer to the
Man is also a great content creator. Another person
as previously stated, Swift gameplay usually utilizes open mic communications, giving them the upper hand in terms of information. This UI update would look to bring these two forms of gameplay to a more equal playing field. But myself, in quite the minority, have some concerns. I have discussed extensively at this point what it is I love about Dead by Daylight. My first video on the channel discussed why the game is so great, the most important element for me being uncertainty. These are the
I'm going to describe how I feel about this very quickly, and I'm going to try to be quick about it. I'm going to make a little drawing. I'm going to show you exactly how I feel about it. And this is a concept we've kind of talked about before, if you've been on the channel, of like how I feel about like design philosophy in general. So let me go ahead and get this. Let's make this a little bit of a... All right, so, hi people. Hey, Lauren, how's it going? How are you, friend? How's your day? All right, so if we're looking at like a tier list, right? Like generally, I think like the sweet spot for any sort of like game balance, is like sweet spot for any sort of game balance is right here. Like, you generally want things in this zone. It's okay to have a little bit of overlap, like down here, like in the top of C. You might have some things in the, like, below S. But ideally, you want things in this middle zone with the A and B. You kind of want things all in here. That's where a game really, really feels good. Because, like, that's what I'm talking about, like, controlling the outliers, right? Like, if you have something... Like, you shouldn't have stuff in D tier. If you have stuff in D tier that's not too great, you should probably bring that up. But if something's in super S tier, like say like Nurse, you probably should bring that down a little bit so it feels better. So everything's kind of in this like middle zone, So yeah. So that's kind of the hot place for that. So currently, Swift S tier, Killer. Let's go and do actually. I'll survive first, and we'll do Killer. Co-op, probably. Like kind of here. It's like low A, high B. Like co-op's kind of like, because if it's like a 3-stack, it's kind of like getting towards A. But if it's just a duo, it's probably like B. We'll put it like low A, top of B. We'll put it like right here. Solo, D. Solo is the weakest form of play in this game. Right? Whereas like Killer was at C before 6.1. Killer was at C before 6.1. Now I think Killer is probably up here with co-op. I think the strength of like a duo or a 3-stack versus like Killer nowadays, it's pretty balanced. I feel like they're pretty similar, especially if you're running the meta. They're pretty similar now, right? What this update's gonna do is it's gonna put Solo after they get their info. It's gonna put them up in like C. It's gonna bring them up here. Yeah, it's gonna bring him up to C. It's gonna bring him up out of the D, which is what we want, right? Like we don't want things down here. We want things generally going up towards this A-B zone. So like in theory, that's a good thing, right? Like in theory, a game theory, we want things going out of. We don't want anything in D tier. So you kind of want to generally put things in this A-B zone. So like that's good that's more approaching that, because if it puts them at the top of C, that's kind of like in our buffer zone, right? Like we said, we can have a little bit of S, a little bit of C, like that can get in our buffer zone, right? And that's good. That's a good thing, and that's why like so many people are happy with the change, because like it shouldn't be down here. It shouldn't be down here so far away from the rest of the gameplay that's up here. It should be more in line. Ideally, I don't know how you would do this. You would have Swift down here. And that way, everything's kind of just in this, like, little, like, general cozy zone together. You know? Everything's generally here. But I don't know how you would do that, realistically. So, yeah, that's why most people are, like, fans of the solo queue change, because it is bringing it more into that, like, that central zone where, like, ideally it should be. Or everything should be in terms of, like, just, like, a balanced decision. But let's see what Gary has to say about it.
The game. You don't know which killer you're initially facing, where they are, what perks players have, what realm you're playing on, where the pallets have spawned, vaults, breakable doors, loopable tiles, where the basement is located, hook spawns, and the skill levels of survivors and killers alike, especially in solo queue. All of these elements, in my opinion, make the game great, though admittedly, none of these things benefit game balance. In fact, I would suggest they are all counter to making a balanced competitive game. The new UI reduces this uncertainty factor. You will no longer not know when the killer has dropped a chase, if anyone has stopped what they are doing to go for that unhook, and your teammates are more likely to know you've been pushed off a progressing generator. As mentioned in Chapter 1, Dead by Daylight was never designed with Swift in mind, but with this update, the very nature of the game's focus is now looking more towards it. No longer are you a lone survivor in a horror scenario. You'll have more information. You'll be able to react more accordingly to your situations. Spontaneous moments are going to lessen. This is another step towards stale, predictable gameplay in my opinion, but undeniably a step towards greater game balance.
Yeah, I see what he's saying. It's like this does start to take away some of the symmetry and some of the uncertainty that the game has. And it's like a darn if you do, darn if you don't, right? Because like the game in its current form is garbage, right? Like the game in its current form is miserable, right? Like, solo queue is miserable. Solo queue sucks. So do you just leave him like that? No, but like, what do? You do this, right? And then that takes away the uncertainty. It's like you lose. You lose no matter what. It's almost like... balancing a party game and making it a sweat game doesn't really work. It's almost like you should have just let it stay a party game. How are those stats looking, Behavior? August 2021, 60,000 players. January 2023, 33,000 players. How's that working out for you? At least on Steam. Sorry. Gotta make that clear. How's that working out for you? Is that going well? Did making your party game sweaty work out? How's that going? Is that going well?
So it's what you want. The reason many of us play Dead by Daylight is because it's fun. Win or lose, it's still fun. Until people are no longer playing for fun, instead to win above all else. This is when you
do lose a lot because of solo queue. You do lose a lot because of solo queue. Because I can tell you how many matches get thrown because of bad plays by players that, you know, if they had info could have made a more informed decision. The force slowdown is like the meta being stale is kind of like a separate issue, right? I kind of see what you're saying, but I don't think they're intrinsically tied to each other.
The monotonous gen clicking builds, immediate 3-gen protections, or the gen focused survivor builds. Time for a blunt opinion. If you care about balanced, competitive gameplay, and choose DBD as your canvas to boost your ego, you might just not be that good at competitive video games.
Yes, he's right. Yes, he's right. You're dog shit if DBD is your competitive canvas. Almost every other game in existence that has a competitive seed takes way more value and effort and skill on your part to do well in. This is Fisher-Price's first competitive game. You're not in Legos, homie, you're in Mega Bloks. You're not on markers, you're still eating crayons. This is a nice little zone where you get to pretend like you're good at a video game. Homie, half of what you do is holding a single button and hitting spacebar. You just got to make sure you don't do it at the same place too many times or you're 3-gen. It's not that difficult. It's not that difficult. Cannot tell you how many times I bring this up a lot on the channel, but this is my background. I cannot tell you how many times I played competitive Street Fighter. Went to tournaments, traveled for tournaments. Hours and hours in the lab, in the practice mode, trying to figure out, am I plus here? Am I minus here? Does the setup work? Is the setup optimal? Hours and hours with friends playing different kinds of characters so I can figure out different matchups. Is the matchup good for me? Is the matchup bad for me? That was intense. That was real. What you do in DBD is not real. What you do in DBD is not real. What you do in DBD is not sweaty, not competitive gameplay. And I don't mean that as a disrespect to all the people that play comp DBD. I don't mean that way. But this game is for babies compared to the competitive demands of other competitive games. Other games out there in the world that require you to play on a competitive level, it is for babies compared to it. It is. I know I said it as a joke. It's quite literally Legos to Mega Bloks. Like, you think you're playing with Legos, but you're Mega Bloks. You need the stupid kid version of it. You need the for babies version. Like, you're not good at this game. Do you honest to God think that when you bring Overbrian Eruption, you kick a gen once and you get so much value that you did anything that required a brain cell? Do you think when you bring a brand new part into a game and you bring a hyper focus, I saw this was a Rebecca build the other day. Brand new part, green toolbox, charges, hyper focus, fast track, stakeout, and then it was like Dead Hard, I think. You think that build takes a fucking brain cell to use? Do you think you really did anything fucking good? Homie, I got bad news. You're trash. You're bad at the video game. You're terrible. This is nowhere near the big leagues. This is even a little like this is like the MLB versus like Pee-wee soccer. Like Pee-wee soccer versus like Major League Soccer. Like it's like football. Don't shoot me, okay? This is like Major League Soccer versus like Pee-wee soccer. Like, you're playing in the 6th grade versus, like, the pro leagues. It is literally not even in the same realm. Not even remotely as other competitive games. And everybody has a little baby ego when they play this game. There are so many people who think they're hot shit in this game. So many people think they're so good at Dead by Daylight. T-ball versus New York Yankees. Literally. Perfect example. T-ball versus New York Yankees. Yes, you're playing vaguely the same game, but like, why? People have little egos about this game. Like it's difficult. The level of execution, the level of skill, the level of knowledge you have to have in this game to do well is nothing. Minimal compared to the libraries of stuff you have to know in other games. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. It's actually disappointing how many people think that they think they're good at video games because they're good at Dead by Daylight. Even when we go to like the extremes, like all the blight mains, they're like, I'm gonna master my hug reverse J flick tech. That's not hard. There's so many people I run who play Oni who think they're gods because they can 180 flick. Bro, homie, you're pressing up and then using it to unlock your turn. Like, almost every combo in fighting games takes more thought than that. Do you understand? Like even the most simple combos in fighting games take more thought and execution than what you're doing when you unlock your 180 flick with Oni. Like, do you understand how little league you are, brother? Do you understand how much you're not doing something difficult? It is laughable. And the rest of the world is laughing at you when you act that way. The rest of the world is laughing at you when you act that way. Yeah, I know it's okay, Ototo. I know it's okay. My point being is I'm dissing the people who think they're doing something crazy, skillful, and awesome in Dead by Daylight when they're really not. People like brag and have an ego about it. Telling you the hard truth here. You're not. Do you think people can get good extremely fast at DBD because they played other skillful games? What do you think I did? What do you think I did? DBD was easy. Why do you think I vibe with DB way longer than other people do? Because I'm exhausted. Right? Like, I'm not exhausted. I've been through the ringer, right? With a game that actually requires a lot of intensity and skill. DBD is chill to me. Even when it's like the harder matches, sometimes I'm like, oh my god, this is really stressful. I don't know why they're going so hard. And then I'll still pull it out because it's like, at least it's not as hard as like trying to get above 5th place in a tournament, which was really hard for me. I always place 5th to 7th. Always 5th to 7th. Was usually where I hung out. I was always trying to push that ceiling. Always trying to push that ceiling. Way less stressful than any of those situations ever were. Any of them. Literally any of them. It's easy in my brain. It's way less stressful. People get into like, oh my god, the survivors are gen rushing me, and they lose their mind. They don't know what it's like to be like getting that performance anxiety. You get put on stage a lot in fighting game tournaments because they stream it too. A lot of them stream. Like they stream the tournaments. You get put on stage. That's stage fright, brother. That's intense. That's scary. That's scary. Like there's so much experiences you can tell they've never had in an actual competitive environment. So that stuff comes to me easy because it's like it's not stressful as that other stuff. Not remotely.
And that's okay, but every day you complain about balance in DBD and behavior listens to you is another day that you change the nature of this video game. If you
I released a video earlier this week. It came out the day of recording, talking about how side v side bias is bad because if you bitch and whine enough, behavior will change the game and it will be bias changes based on your complaints, and that will worsen the game experience for everybody. I know my stuff.
Truly cared about playing a balanced asymmetrical horror game, you could go play Video Horror Society, an excellently balanced asim horror game. But you don't, because you weren't good enough to win at that game. You came back to DBD and complain about balance. The Dead by Daylight player base is more competitive than I have ever seen it.
Yep.
But who is to blame?
How did this happen? Who's to blame? Well, certainly there are those who are more responsible than others, and they will be held accountable. But again, truth be told, if you're looking for the guilty, you need only look into a mirror.
Yep.
As a player base, we don't know what we want. Do we want a fun casual party game set within the horror genre, or a balanced competitive experience? Judging by VHS's player numbers, most people want the former, but far too many also want to consistently...
Hey, listen, if VHS players didn't have an ego about their game, I would not care, but... Hey, Red, how's it going, friend?
We went Mario Party, charades must be treated like a competitive battleground, and DBD is an esport. My point is, and I do hope the new UI updates make the game better, fairer, and more enjoyable for solo queue survivor play. But every step towards balance in Dead by Daylight has, for me, at least in recent history, damaged the uncertainty and overall fun of the core gameplay. Players take the game increasingly seriously, and the game feels ever more stale for it. I mean, what's next? Do we want the maps to be completely static for the sake of balance? No random generator placement? Pallets or...
No, it's just the
spawns?
outliers.
Should we always want to spawn in the same
Just curb the
place?
outliers, that's
Should
it.
map tiles always be the same as well? If we truly want a balance,
I mean, that's... I want to talk about that, what he just talked about, where should layouts always be the same? I feel like that's why Dead Dog is kind of boring. Because besides orientating that town side, Dead Dog mostly spawns the same way every time. And I find it kind of a boring map to go to on both sides for that reason. Anybody else feel that way? Like exactly what he's talking about. We already kind of have like a pseudo version of that in Dead Dog, and how it like spawns almost the same way every single time. And it's kind of like, don't like going to that map either side, because it is so samey every time I go there. Like the main building is always the same. The gallows is always the same. Shack is always the same. The town side has the same tiles, but they're just orientated differently. It's like kind of boring. Kind of boring. I don't like going there for that reason. Does that spawn? It's not. The town side spawns differently. Like sometimes the single vault with the double brick wall will be at like the left end or the right end, but it's the same tiles. They're just all like mismatched. Yeah, I don't really like going to the dog. Not because I hate it, but it's just kind of boring because everything is so samey on it.
A lot of this RNG needs to go after all. With the new UI, killers are going to want a buff again, and arguably they will need it. We're likely going to see more camping, tunneling, and more use of meta-gen kicking killer perks to combat this survivor buff. In response, we'll likely see more meta survivor perks speeding up those generator repairs.
Yep.
And finally, more people taking the game ever more seriously. But it's more balanced, so behavior gave us what we wanted, right? And just to be clear, there is nothing wrong with wanting a well-balanced competitive asymmetrical horror game. There just already is one, and you're already not playing it.
Yep.
Anyway, that's just my thought.
Literally. Go play VHS then. Go sit in 10-minute queues. Or are you scared of losing? Huh? Did I strike a nerve? Or are you just afraid of losing? Is that it? You just afraid of losing? Maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. Maybe you're just afraid of losing.
So new UI will hopefully be a good update, but there is a reason I choose to play solo queue survivor over Swiffing most of the time. I'm not thrilled at the two playstyles becoming increasingly similar. But what do you think? Am I being pessimistic? Is balance actually a benefit to your playing experience?
Here's it. I'm going to explain exactly, because like I you know, Gary watched my last one. Hopefully you watched this one. This is what I feel about it. We are stuck now. This is redundant if you've watched the last video, and especially for those of you who are right here in this current video, or this current stream, who have already seen this, but we're gonna revisit this. We're gonna look at Steam charts again. This is why. The reason we are a lot of people clamor for more balance now. It's because we're stuck. We're kind of hard stuck. I think there are some really cringed players that really do want a more sweaty Dead by Daylight. I really do think there's some cringe players, some sweaty players that really do want a sweatier Dead by Daylight. And that's the thing. This game, ever since August of 2021, has been, besides a couple blips here and there, on a negative decline. A negative decline. They have seen all these numbers and they go, that's fine. Sure, that's okay. It'll be 2 years this year. This year, 2 years of skill-based matchmaking. It's not going anywhere, right? It's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. So, like, what do we do now, right? Like, where do we go? Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? It seems like, for whatever reason, for better or worse, they're hard committed to this skill-based matchmaking thing. I would be so happy if I woke up tomorrow and they said, sorry guys, we tried that skill-based matchmaking thing. Didn't work out. I would be so happy. I'd be so happy. I'd be haps. But they're sticking to it. Regardless of how many players they've lost, they're sticking to it for whatever reason. So I think a lot of us are just doubling down, I guess. We're adapting. Even they're not going to change their mind, evidently, on skill-based matchmaking. They are not changing their mind MMR for whatever reason. So I guess a lot of us are just kind of like, well, if we're really going to look at balancing the fun out of DBD, these are the things that aren't fun, guys. If you really, really want to go this path, here's our suggestions. I think that's it. I think people are just resigning. You know? I think people are just kind of, you know, trying to just, like, live with the... This sounds really intense, but, like, live with the pain that behavior has put in, which is a more sweaty game. Behavior wants it to be a more sweaty game, and I think people are just trying to, like, make it the best experience it can be if it is going to end up being more sweaty. We've resisted for years. For a year and a half. Over a year. We've resisted for over a year. This whole skill-based matchmaking thing, and they don't care. They don't give a darn. They don't care. So I think a lot of us are just like, okay, well, whatever. If we're stuck with this, you might as well fix this thing. If we're stuck with this, you might as well fix that. I definitely agree that it shouldn't be a party game. We should keep that uncertainty, but if we're stuck, we might as well fix some things. Yep. If we're stuck, we might as well fix all these things. If we're going to make it balanced, we might as well make it pretty balanced, right? So at least we can thrive and survive, right?
Or do you think we're losing something each balance-focused patch? Either way,
hey, that thing we're losing is players. Players.
Have an amazing day, and once again, Happy New Year.
No, Happy New Year to you, bud. Yeah, I think we're just adapting. Like, if you like my honest answer, I think we're just adapting. I think there are a certain group of players who watch really, really sweaty killer mains, watch really, really sweaty survivor mains on stream, on Twitch, on YouTube, and they're like, I want to be like them. And there's that crowd out there. I think you're cringe if you're one of those people, but you're out there. But I think most of us do want a party game. And I think most of us just have kind of, unfortunately and pessimistically and crestfallenly accepted that skill-based matchmaking is not going anywhere. The sweat in this game is not going anywhere, so we might as well make the best of our situation. So I think that's why you see so many people clamoring for balance. I feel like there's a huge population that are just trying to go with the flow and realize that time's changed. Let's make the best of this. Yeah, exactly, right. We're in the same spot. It's just more competitive. Like, we just have more sweaty games more often. Same things are happening. So, yeah, I feel like we're just coping. We're just coping with the pain that has been inflicted, and this is our way of coping. Is just like, might as well give all these suggestions if things are stuck this way. So, yeah, I think that's it. I think that's all for that. It's pretty straightforward, honestly. It's disappointing, but it is pretty straightforward.